Hello everyone, welcome to another video for Into the Hive Mind. This episode is going to talk about the very exciting changes that just came out for the entirety of 40k, but obviously I will be focusing on the things that affect specifically Tyranids and Genestealer Cult. First off, I did want to just start by saying I hope everyone is staying safe. Warhammer has definitely taken a backseat for me as after my last video and that RTT with the new Forge World bugs, 4 of the 10 of us there did end up testing positive for coronavirus. So thankfully everyone's doing great, no issues there, but I do just want to remind everyone to please stay safe. Anyways, on to the exciting news. I'm just going to jump right in. We got point changes everywhere, and I'm probably going to miss one or two, so if you notice any point changes that I did miss, please post them in the comments. But starting off with the Tyranid Codex, we get to start with our Hive Tyrant. So the leader of our forces had their wings drop 15 points. This is a very big boost, and one that is definitely needed. The only other change is our monstrous scything talons changed from, instead of being 15 points for a set and 20 points for 2, they're now just 10 points each. So overall, it got cheaper by 5 points if you only buy one set. The monstrous lash whip and bone sword also went down 5 points. So these guys could very well see a bit of a comeback with this point change. They didn't become amazing, but this is a much more appropriate point cost for what the model is capable of. Next up, that's the only thing that changed in our HQs. So moving on to troops. Surprisingly, we have Termagants. They did not go down in base points. They're still keeping that 5-point floor for all models in the game. But their Devourers now only cost 2 points per model. That is an insane drop and makes Devil Gaunts cheaper than they were in 8th edition. I definitely think you should try and throw 10 Devourers into a 20-man squad now. I'm even going to try some Jormungandr shenanigans with 30 Devourer Gaunts. They're still very pricey at 210 points, but that's way better than the 270 that they used to be. Also, a huge boost in the troops department. Tyranid Warriors went down 4 points per model. They're now cheaper than they've ever been, and combined with the Blood of Ball stuff, they can be crazy durable for their points and are probably now our best objective holders we have, other than just a mass Gaunt carpet. That's all for troops, though, but definitely consider some warriors. I've been playing them anyways, and now 4 points cheaper per model. That's huge. So next up, our elites slot, we had actually our Hive Guard. Their Impaler cannons went down 5 points per model. Hive Guard were just starting to get phased out of the competitive scene, so I think this actually gives them a decent shot at holding on just a little bit longer in the competitive meta. We'll have to see, but they are the one unit we have that can shoot things out of line of sight, because biovores don't count, and so they're definitely nice to have in a list. Tyrant Guard also went down 2 points per model, but at 38 points apiece, they're still just way too expensive for what they do. If they do gain that bodyguard ability that new Marines have, not allowing characters to be attacked if they're within 3 inches of a bodyguard, I do think that they'd be worth it at that point, but as it stands right now, they're way too pricey. Zoanthropes are the one Tyranid unit that actually got an increase in points. They went up 5 points per model. Honestly, I wasn't running Zoanthropes anyways, but I know a lot of competitive players were. 5 points per model isn't a huge difference, but kind of puts the nail in the coffin for a unit that I didn't really play anyways for me. However, I hope others continue to have success with the unit. Please tell me of games where Zoanthropes were the MVPs for you, because I'd love to hear about it. But for now, yeah, I'm just not really playing them. In fast attack, we only have one unit that changed, and that was Raveners. They went down 2 points per model. I've only ever used Raveners in Jormungandr as just kind of a cheap way to deep strike my other units, but I do think a unit of 9 Raveners in a custom Hive fleet with a whole bunch of extra AP on their scything talons could see some play, and now it's even cheaper to do that. But that's all for fast attack. In heavy support, we did see some nice changes. Carnifexes have the same change on Scything Talons as the Hive Tyrants do, except they had different points for their Scything Talons before, so that actually results them in being 5 points more for the second set. So I mean, that's not a huge deal. Carnifexes with just double Scything Talons are still really cheap at only 100 points. But the Tyrannifex, however, went down an amazing 20 points. This is definitely where I think the Tyrannifex should be, and I would absolutely consider taking the Acid Spray version now. Unfortunately, they're in heavy support, which the new Forge World Hero Duels really clutter up that heavy support slot, because those Hero Duels are probably the best thing we have in the game right now. So I do think the Tyrannifex is great, especially the Acid Spray version, but the Hero Duels are better. And then finally, Sporosis in our Fortification Detachment. They went down the most of anything. 30-point drop on all of their guns. So we no longer have to pay a premium price for 5 heavy weapons on our 5-up ballistic skill model. This is definitely awesome for the model. I think it's great at that point range. 115 points for Death Spitters now, and instead of the 145. And this is honestly awesome if you have room to fit them in your list, that Fortification Detachment, and also if you can fit them on your table because of the weird way fortifications and terrain work. But if you can fit it, I'd absolutely consider putting them in, as they are now the only thing that can infiltrate thanks to the changes to Meiotic Spores. But that's all for Tyranid point changes. Overall, it was a nice reduction in cost across a whole bunch of units. Only Zoanthropes went up in points, and there's a lot of other changes to like the overall rules and missions in general that helped nids a ton, but I'm going to go over those after the Genestealer Cult point changes. So for Genestealer Cult, unfortunately, they did not get the same love that nids got, although I'm sure we're all used to that at this point. But I will start off by saying Aberrants went down 2 points per model. So while they've still been nerfed to utter oblivion, at least they finally stopped beating that dead mutant horse. As far as HQs, all HQs stayed exactly the same. I would have liked to see a few point decreases here and there, but it's not really the end of the world. Genestealer Cult characters still do their job really well. So moving on to troops, Acolytes had their Hand Flamers go up 1 point each. This is fair. They did get double the range that they used to have, so being 3 points each instead of 2 points each isn't a huge deal. Rock Saws are still criminally cheap, and demo charges are still criminally overcosted. So all's pretty much the same on that front. Neophytes stayed exactly the same, but for some reason Brood Brothers went up 1 point per model. So you might as well just buy Neophytes now and give your Guardsmen your cult traits, because you're paying the same price either way now. And then moving on to our elite slot, as I said, Aberrants went down 2 points per model. Everything else stayed the same. For fast attack, Ridge Runners, they actually went down 5 points per model. This is because their equipment is now free, so just keep spamming these guys, as they're in about all the Genestealer Cult lists I've seen that have been doing really well, and I honestly expected them to be nerfed, but they dropped 5 points. Adelan Jackals stayed mostly the same, but the heavy weapons on the Wolf Quad went down 5 points, so slightly cheaper if you're including those guys. Sentinels also went down 5 points on all their weapon loadouts, so they're still really cheap. And then in heavy support, the weird one was definitely the Brood Brother Heavy Weapon Squad. They're now 50 points base instead of 18, but each of their guns went down 10 points. So overall, the squad went up a measly 2 points for 3 guys with heavy weapons. That just, again, I think they're just trying to round up, because before it was 18 points plus 45 for guns, and now it's 50 points plus 5 or 10 points per gun, depending on what you want to take. Leman Russ tanks went down 5 points overall. They're good tanks, but they're nothing like the Guard version that have all the orders, stratagems, and creeds that just make Leman Russes super good. Goliath Rock Grinders went down 15 points on all their turret options, so they might even see the table now. And Chimeras and Trucks also went down 10 points each. So overall, Genestealer Cult vehicles definitely got cheaper, and anti-vehicle weaponry got cheaper. So clearly GW is just trying to get more vehicles in the game without changing that overall balance. Nothing really crazy for Genestealer Cult, nothing crazy good, nothing crazy bad, except again, I don't know why Brood Brothers went up to 6 points per model, but just take Neophytes. I am definitely happy that Ridge Runners, not only did they not get nerfed, but they did get a slight point decrease. So I think mass spamming light vehicles could very much be a strategy for Genestealer Cult right now. And that's a great segue for other rules that changed that result in Tyranids and Nids getting a massive buff. The biggest one is Bring It Down. It has been changed to be way less effective for our opponents. Now, a model killed with 10 or less wounds only gives up 1 point, and if it's 19 or less, it only gives up 2 points. The model only gives up 3 points if it has 20 or more wounds. That is a huge buff and gives way more credibility to the thought that GW wants more monsters and vehicles in the game. Also a huge buff are the changes to Abhor the Witch. Now, non-character units only give up 2 victory points, and psychic characters give up 3 points. This is massive for Nids, as suddenly bringing 3 flying Hive Tyrants gives up only 15 points instead of the insane 24 that it used to. 15 is still a lot, but not anywhere near as bad. And so you might finally see 3 Flyerants back on the field, especially with their point changes. Even if you don't see 3 Flyerants, then at least we can run our big psychic bugs without just auto losing the game. Other notable changes, the mission While We Stand, We Fight is now the biggest unit instead of biggest model. So that could be really fun to combine with our Endless Swarm stratagem. For example, those 30 Devouragons that I want to try are 210 points. If that's one of your top 3 most expensive units, then have that be your While We Stand, We Fight. And turn 5, do the Endless Swarm, bring them on, get your 5 free victory points. Also just good to know for what your opponents might be having. Also, they changed now that you can have a model deploy overhanging your deployment zone as long as its base fits. So that definitely allows Harridans to fit in your deployment zone, although I think Hierophants are still a little too big for the Dawn of War deployment. But I'm definitely considering getting myself a nice Smog the Dragon Harridan model to complement my bugs. And we can also put our big bugs back into drop pods, as they fixed models that have bases larger than 3 inches. When they disembark from a transport, just have to have their base within 1 inch of that transport. The final change to note, it doesn't affect our army that much, but they did bring back the ability to deep strike 9 inches away on a tall piece of terrain and then have a much shorter charge thanks to the 5-inch vertical engagement range. That's just, I think that was more of a clarification, but just be aware of that when you deep strike 9 inches away from enemy models, that is a direct line. You do not measure horizontally and then vertically. You do measure that direct diagonal line. Anyways, that's all for this. Like I said, very exciting time for Nids, especially combining the new Forge World stuff with these point changes. I think Nids have a decent shot of doing really well right now. So I really hope that everything in the pandemic calms down, because I really want to play some games. And like I said, I know it's exciting, but let's all stay safe, and I will see you all in the next video. Thank you.